not only have you been dealing with all of those things, but doing it really well, but also a lot of success on the field. You're 2 for 2 on national championships. You roll in here and here, Michigan wins a national championship. Ohio State wins a national championship. Has to be rewarding for you.
Yeah, it really is. It's great for everybody to be a part of those campuses, and you got to work with those coaches and what it means for when the Big Ten wins, everybody rallies behind. Like, it's a really interesting job. When you're playing conference games, you're kind of stone-faced. You're on the sideline. You can't indicate any emotion. You make sure the colors are gray and black and don't reflect any school colors.
Yeah.
But then when you get into these non-conference games, like you're living and dying just like the people on campus are, and so you're rooting really hard. So that's been incredibly rewarding. And there's a side benefit. The more we win, apparently the more IQ points you get. And it's just like
the better job you're doing.
Yeah, apparently, all those wins matter in terms of like some of my job performance, I guess. On the outcome of games. When you're sitting there, and so you try to put people in position. Like I think we've done a good job of trying to provide the resources and the support to let our coaches and student athletes do what they do best. And we've been really blessed the last couple of years, and to go through that first CFP with 11 games, and we played in 8 of them.
Yeah.
And in one game we had 2 teams playing. So it was a pretty remarkable, run, and it was great for the conference and a real, confirmation of the quality of football we're playing from top to bottom.
Your goal, and I've talked with Greg and Brett and Jim, all the commissioners about this. Your job is to work for your schools.
Correct.
And to put them in the best position to succeed, and yet here we are collaboratively trying to create a system to crown a champion,
That's right.
And it's difficult because there isn't that one person that,
That's right.
Is overarching over everything. So I would love, let's backtrack objectives. As the commissioner of the Big Ten, what are your objectives for the future of the CFP and its format?
Yeah, the first thing is it goes right back to representing the Big Ten, because that's my job. There isn't a commissioner of college football, like you've pointed out. So each of us, when we get in that room, we are looking at trying to work together to come to the right solution for all of us. But ultimately, my job is to represent the 18 institutions in the Big Ten, our football, our coaches, our players, the way we do things. And so it's really important to represent that. And we start from the place that we're always not going to be aligned on that. There might be different ideas in different conferences. We have an obligation to try to come together to work these things out. But like the goal for me, like right from the beginning, and I really felt strongly about this, and maybe it's my experience coming from MLB, where you have that one entity. I really believe that you've got to have a postseason format that makes the regular season better. So I start from that. I want more teams to feel like they're chasing that opportunity to compete for a national championship. Teams can get hot late in the season. The fact that they lose a game early shouldn't disqualify them. Those type of things. So to play more meaningful conference games as late as possible. I think you see that in the professional sports model. They try to keep as many teams alive for as long as possible. And especially when you get into a world when you condition fans to think about this great new playoff that we've created, they're gonna focus on achieving that. And so to the extent that teams don't have the opportunity to get there, it's going to eventually, hurt. And so we want to make sure we have the interest that teams can break through, have a remarkable season, qualify, and play. And we just believe strongly that, conference record is like the backbone of all of that. Like how you play during the season, qualify off your conference record. That's sort of the best way, we believe.
So that would be your main objective. If I could boil it down, it's you want to keep more teams relevant for longer in the season, playing meaningful games later in the year.
That's right. Teams that finish, if you're sitting there in November and you've got a team, going in that's 5-3, playing a team that's 6-2 or whatever it might be. I look at Ohio State last year. Ohio State, lost 2 Big Ten conference games. Technically, they finished 4th in the conference at 7-2, and we're clearly by end of the playoff run, we're clearly the best team in the country. And so I think it's an indication of like. It's hard to figure this stuff out during the course of a season. Who's playing really well? And one thing I'll say also, Joel, that's really important is like even within the Big Ten, we've got you have 17 available opponents. You play 9 of them, and so even within a schedule, like there's discrepancies in the strength of schedule. Like you just don't know, who's going to be strong, who not when you play them. Like the rub of that luck of that schedule when you play teams, who's healthy when you play them, and so the idea we've had about playing play-in games is a way to sort of accommodate the fact that we're not playing that much of a common schedule, even within the league, let alone trying to be compared to SEC, Big 12, and ACC. So, the idea of, having a championship game, where those 2 teams are in, and then playing our 6th team versus our 3rd and our 5th versus our 4th, which is the idea we've been talking about. I think it just is a way to also normalize your conference schedule, because it really is hard to sometimes tell the difference among our own teams, because a lot of times they don't play each other.
I think this is one of the unintended consequences of what's happened in the last 5 years with all the conference movement is not only now do we have imbalances between schedules between conferences in terms of league games played within the SEC and the Big Ten, or ACC and the Big 12, but now also you have the inequities within the conference.
Correct.
You've got, like, for instance, if you look at the SEC, last year Florida and Oklahoma played a horrific schedule. As compared to others. People have pointed out that Indiana got a bit of a favorable draw in the Big Ten, but that's going to happen in a large conference. And one of the things that I think that we've got to do from an objective standpoint is really mark down. I've got 4 criteria. I love yours, and mine fits in with one of yours. I think that we need to increase fan base engagement, which it does exactly what you're talking about. Keep more teams alive later into the year. Yep. I think we need to increase the valuable or meaningful games that we play in college football, not decrease them.
Encourage them, actually.
Encourage them. That's right. And that happens, by the way, I'm talking about this in a postseason environment and in the non-conference environment, because I think both of those,
they go hand in hand.
They do go hand in hand. I think we need to minimize the power of the committee. And lastly, I think that we need to maintain more conferences being relevant. So with those objectives, and more specifically your objective in terms of keeping more teams alive, what you have put forth, I guess, in your idea and your model is a 16-team playoff with a 4-4, 2-2, 1-3. Now, all of you listen to the Joel Klatt Show, I've broken this down so it sounds intricate. 4 automatic spots for the Big Ten and the SEC, 2 automatic spots for the ACC and the Big 12, 3 at large, 1 for the Group of 5, and then Notre Dame falls in that at large pool with those 3 spots. You kind of touched on some of the things that would achieve, including a play-in weekend. But let's just start at that model. Why that model?
Look, the first thing I'll say, and going back to why that model, you start with the committee. Like, we'll stipulate that the committee does the best job they possibly can. This is not about to sort of say that they don't do a good job. Like, they do the best they can, making incredibly difficult decisions based on data. Like, look, this year in the Big Ten, we'll cross over. I think we play 4 Big 12 games. We play 3 SEC, 3 ACC, and I think we have 2 Notre Dame games, if I remember all this correctly. It's not a lot of conference play among us, right, to have a body of work. So when you start comparing teams that don't have a head-to-head, and you have very little, data to look at between matchups between the leagues, and when those games are played and who matched up in them, so that becomes really difficult. So I start off with a stipulation. I think the committee is set up to do the best job they possibly can. I just think what they're being asked to do is so difficult. So look, I understand there was controversy about, how many AQs one league gets another. Let's put that aside for now. I think what we're trying to focus on is, at least within the Big Ten, we're not asking to be handed anything. Like, we're playing non-conference games. We want to play tough play-in games to get there, and we want to create an incentive for our schools to schedule more non-conference. Because if you're qualifying off your conference
record,
to
build a system that
increases,
creates
more
tougher games.
Yeah, I want to play more. Look, we want to play. I think theoretically the goal is to play more non-conference games, because if you're qualifying for the CFP off your conference record and then a play-in game, the fact that you play a tough SEC or ACC or Big 12 team and maybe get beat on the road, or whatever the result is, that might impact your seeding down the road, but it's not going to impact your access. There's 3 at-larges, so yeah, it does a little bit, but at the end of the day, that loss isn't fatal. Look, you can finish 7-2 in the Big Ten like Ohio State, and if you lost a non-conference game, or one of our schools finishes 7-2 and loses a non-conference, and they finish with a 9-3 record, they're in the tournament, because a 7-2 record is certainly going to get you into a play-in game in the Big Ten. So I think that's bringing everybody together, like teams knowing they can come. Because I think, look, as great as college football is, and it's great, there's just more on the table we can do. I think fans want to see these non-conference games
I agree.
Earlier in the season. I think we can do more of it. I think everybody's pointing to at least at the beginning, the Texas-Ohio State game is going to get tremendous attention.
As it should.
Yeah, and we want more of that. We want to incent that and not create a sense of where you're worried about, does winning that game help you more, or does losing that game hurt you more? And that's what coaches and ADs are going to be faced with deciding when they start to figure out, like, because it's tough. Like, look, you know this. You do our games a lot. Like, to get to 7-2 inside the Big Ten is a pretty remarkable record. That's not an easy accomplishment. And then if you stumble in a non-conference game, you're at the mercy of, deciding and making comparisons with other. I don't know
with
how you
flawed
compare
criteria.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand how you compare 10-win teams in one league to a 9-win team in another. That 9-win team could be clearly better. I just think it's very, very difficult, mainly getting back to what I suggested. There isn't much head-to-head, and there really isn't a lot of crossover, at least in our league, because we play 9 conference games. We don't play that many games against the SEC. We don't play, and I'd like to actually play more because I think it's just better for fans. But that's where it is. It's not without controversy. I know we've had this committee system in college for a really long time. I understand the idea about who gets what is controversial, but that's what we should do. Get in the room and try to figure that out.
Thank you for watching the Joel Klatt Show YouTube channel. And if you liked this clip, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel, and you can stay up to date on all of my college football coverage.